Welcome to Rivers in the Wasteland. I'm your host, Amanda Williams, and today I'm going to share with you the most expensive lesson I've learned so far and why I think it was worth every penny. Have you ever enjoyed going to check out open houses? You know, you're just driving along and all of a sudden you see a sign on the corner that says open house this way. And you're like, okay, let's do it. That's what Eric and I used to do before we had kids and we had more time and energy. We would be driving along, and if we saw a sign, we would just go for it. We'd go check it out. It was really fun to see what was out there. After having our oldest daughter, we just stopped doing stuff like that. It had been a while since we had done that when we ended up in this neighborhood that was the hot new development in our area. It was actually a little farther out than where we lived, but we knew some people that were building in that area. We thought it would be fun to go check out all the model homes. And we were right. It was so much fun. Going in and out of all of these perfectly curated model homes was really enjoyable. There must have been 8 to 10 developers in this one community, and we went around to each one, looking at every different floor plan. It really got our wheels turning, and before I knew it, we were having conversations about building a home. That's kind of how they get you, isn't it? At that time, we were living in a home that we owned. So before we could even think about building a new home, we had to think about selling the one that we had. The person at the builder we talked to didn't think that would be any problem as long as we used their realtor. Well, we didn't see there being any problem with that. He would get paid from selling the home, so he would be invested in it, right? We also didn't have a large down payment aside what we would be putting in from the sale of our home, so they had us pay $1,000 a month during the duration of the build. And we thought that was pretty fair since we didn't have the typical $20,000 to put down when you start building a home. We did everything you do when you build a home. We got to choose our lot. Where did we want our home to sit in the grand scheme of the neighborhood? We visited the site often. We took pictures at every phase. We prayed over the foundation, and when it was framed out, we prayed over that too. We picked out every finish, every piece of flooring, every piece of hardware, all the lighting fixtures. I took friends by the model of our floor plan time and time again so they could see what it would look like. It was such an exciting season. During that time, we prepared our home to be sold. When the time came to list the home, we waited and we waited for a buyer. We had more no-shows than we had people actually show up for the showings. Now, our home that we used to live in, it was unique in the sense that it was a community of townhomes, and it was partially built. So there was a lot of empty lots. And so my thought is that when people drove into the neighborhood, they would just drive right back out because they didn't want to live in something that was so underdeveloped. It was a beautiful community, but it started being built. I think it was in 2008. So it only got halfway done before everything crashed. And then they just kind of put a pause on it and then never finished it. They actually ended up finishing it out after we moved out of it years later. But it was this huge challenge, and having a child, trying to keep the house show ready all the time, it was just extremely stressful. Days turned into weeks, which turned into months waiting for a buyer. We got closer and closer to the final walkthrough. Still, no offers. And every month we got closer to the new home being finished was more and more stressful on us. The builder kept putting pressure on us every single month to lower the price of our home. And that was hard because every month we got closer, and every time he wanted to kick the price down, it was taking away from the money that we were going to have to put the down payment on the new house, which would then increase the loan, which of course would then increase the monthly payment. So everything was going to continue going up. It was just a really hard thing to wrap our minds around. So we lowered the price a little bit, but then we really hit our bottom line. And so we were kind of at odds with our realtor, who just wanted to drop our price quite a bit so that way we could just bring in an offer at the bottom line. And we just didn't feel good about that. We left the price the lowest that we could go, and we just waited. Nothing. Now, you may think that this story would be one of those testimonies of, and then God came through at the last second. He brought a buyer that gave us exactly what we needed, and we were able to get into this beautiful home, and it was so amazing. And a story, a testimony of God's faithfulness. That would have been great, but it's not our story. So the builder started putting pressure on us to pull from our retirement because we didn't have the money to get into the new home. And it was clear that our other home wasn't going to sell. But the danger of doing anything like that was going to put us in the position to carry 2 loans, and we just couldn't do that. I had stopped working when I had Amelia, so we had one income amongst the 2 of us. And we just knew it wouldn't be a wise decision to take on 2 home payments. They didn't want us to lose the house. We needed a down payment, but we just didn't feel comfortable with that. We felt like it was reckless to do that. But at the same time, we had invested thousands of dollars at that point, and so we felt like we needed to keep going. We were getting pressure from every side. Nothing was working out the way that we thought it would. Up until the very end, everything had been so smooth. Then at that point, everything was falling apart. I was so stressed every single day. My back was going out. I have never had back problems, but I remember during this season of life, there were days where I could hardly walk without looking like I was 80 years old because my body was soaking up the stress so bad that I started seeing physical manifestations of that stress, and I was just losing it. We had one last meeting at the builder's office. He knew the situation that we were in. We were kind of at odds at that point because he could see that we weren't willing to pull the money out of our retirement. We weren't willing to just take that risk to get into the home. And he told us, well, just come on, let's just go see the house. So we went and we looked at the house, and it was gorgeous. Every finish, every piece of flooring, the paint colors. I picked this black quartz countertop, and the kitchen was white with black hardware. It was so classic looking. I remember walking through the home just thinking, wow, we did good. We picked things that were so great together, and it looked gorgeous. Everything came together just like I thought it would for the home. After that, the builder got very serious with us, telling us that something had to give. Closing was coming up, and we still hadn't sold our home. We left that meeting so upset and confused. Why was this happening? We thought that that was our home. We prayed over it. Up until the end, we didn't have any red flags. It just wasn't going the way that we thought it would. A day or 2 later, I went to the site by myself and I walked through the house. I'm one of those people that just gets a feeling about something, a sense of discernment. I just know sometimes. So I knew I just needed to get into the house alone. I put on some worship music. I just started to pray, and I asked the Lord to show me. As I was walking on the 2nd level of the house, admiring it at every turn, I heard a voice say, "This isn't your house." And at that point, I wish I could say, I knew it. I knew it was God. I knew it was Him. And I backed away, and we just turned and we went, and we never looked back. But that also isn't my story. At that point, I was so emotionally attached to the house. I was so confused when I heard that voice because I was so sure of what I heard. But why would God have gotten us all the way to the end just to not let us have it? Was it the enemy trying to keep us from something good? Was it God telling us to stop in our tracks? A couple days after that encounter, I was praying and asking God for clarity. Was it you? Was it the enemy? How can I know for sure? The stakes were so high. There was so much money on the line at this point. I felt like my gut was telling me to put on the brakes, and I felt that I heard in my heart and my spirit, but I was still questioning it because it honestly wasn't the answer that I wanted. And the Lord, He met me right there, right where I was, and He assured me. I heard Him audibly say, "You are my sheep. You know my voice." He didn't reprimand me. He didn't lash out and become offended that I was questioning who I heard. He was kind and He was gracious, and He assured me, "You are mine. You know me." In the book of John, chapter 10, verse 27, Jesus tells a crowd, "My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me." I knew Him. I knew in my heart He was saying to stop moving forward. It didn't match what my flesh wanted, but I knew it was right. And yet, even in that, I hadn't shared that with Eric. At that point in our marriage, I just don't really feel like we had learned how to have like the complete, blunt, honest conversations that we do now about big decisions. It takes time to figure all that out in a relationship, you know? One day we were at a barbecue with people in that neighborhood. They weren't exactly friends, but they were people that we were getting to know that lived close to the home that we were going to be in. And it was so awkward. They weren't our people, and we both knew that. We could feel it. We left there and we were discussing the house situation, and finally Eric just told me to answer him really fast. He said, "Do you think we should walk away from the house?" And I just blurted out, "Yes!" And I started to cry because I knew what that meant. I knew what we would lose. Not only would we lose the money, but we'd lose the dream. We'd lose the future that we thought was ours. Over the course of time we had waited for the home to be built, we had invested $11,000 into it. We didn't get a single penny of that back. We took our home off the market and switched gears to just stay where we were. It was way harder on me than it was for Eric. The home we were in wasn't bad. I loved it, but I had already prepared to leave, so settling back in it was actually really hard. One day, Eric told me we were going on a drive. He didn't tell me where. He just put me and Amelia in the car and we started driving. When we first got married, Eric had been working for a storage facility. He was the manager, so we got free housing in the manager's apartment on site. They even paid for our utilities, which was really amazing for a newlywed couple to not have utilities or rent. Some properties were great. Some were a little sketchy, but it was free, right? Free was free. In Arizona, we got placed at a site that was not in a great part of town. There was a homeless guy that would sleep in the parking lot. There was one spot in the apartment that smelled so bad that I told Eric that there had to be someone or something dead in the wall. I hated that apartment. We didn't even unpack because Eric told me we wouldn't be there long, so I believed him. We do have some good memories, though, of that place. We met some great friends there, and Eric actually built me a fort in the living room because we didn't want to move all of our stuff into the bedroom because it was gross. So he put the mattress on the floor in the middle of the living room, and he used our sheets to make a tent. He connected them to the ceiling fan, so we had this little tent fort in the middle of our living room, and we would use our computer to watch Netflix in the tent, and that was just something that was a really fun memory of that time. So the day that he took me on a drive after everything fell through with the house, we ended up at that storage facility parking lot. I wasn't really paying attention on the drive. A lot of times I just space out. But we pulled in and I knew exactly why we were there. I started to cry. We had come so far. God had blessed us so much in the home that we had. It was such a great perspective shift, and it really helped me come to terms with everything and settle back into the home that we had with a spirit of gratitude. We stayed in that house about another 18 months, and then that's when God started to really show off. The market changed quite a bit between the first time we tried to sell the house and the second time we tried to sell the house. We decided to try again because we felt like it was time, and wow, we were right. We were able to list our home for $40,000 more than what our lowest price was the time before. We had one open house and we got a few offers within a week. Before I knew it, we were under contract and we found a house pretty quickly after that. Not only was it a wonderful house, but it was in the most perfect neighborhood with the nicest people. In that neighborhood, I met one of my best friends, and so did my daughter. There was a park in the center, all the kids played together, families got together for dinner and took care of one another. It was truly where we were meant to be. All of us neighbors used to joke about how it was truly the unicorn type of neighborhood, just something that was so unique and so special. God had a plan. He knew. I couldn't see it, but it was there. He loved us too much to let us keep going when he knew there was something better for us down the road. He wanted us to get a better offer and be surrounded by people that were our people. Going through that experience was painful and expensive, but it was worth it because I learned to walk in the confidence when it comes to hearing the voice of God. It cannot be mistaken with the voice of the enemy. It just can't. They aren't the same. The enemy likes to confuse us and try to get us to think that it's the same. But if we are in tune with the Lord and truly seeking him, we will be able to discern it. That's why it's so important to be pursuing Him so that when we come to the crossroads in life, we know who we are hearing because we are in tune with Him already. Simple ways to pursue the Lord. 1, just pray. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just talk to God in the morning while you're getting ready for work, or while you're getting ready to go out and hang out with your kids, or while you're getting ready for the presentation that you have that day, or even on your drive. Just talk to Him. Thank Him for what you have. Thank Him for what He's done for you already. Tell Him what you need. He cares. He wants to hear those things. And then give yourself some time to hear back. Maybe start practicing giving that space so that way He can tell you something too. 2, read the Bible. If you don't know where to start, there's a ton of Bible reading plans. YouVersion has a Bible app. You can choose many different kinds of plans on there. Or if you know someone who has a great relationship with God, ask them, where should you start? I personally think the New Testament Gospels are a great place to start. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It's the story of Jesus' life, and they're amazing and filled with many miracles that are inspiring. I have found that I benefit greatly from those habits when I'm in difficult seasons. But during the difficult seasons is not when it's easy to start cultivating those habits. Does that make sense? I've watched many people also go through difficult, hard times, and if they don't have those things established, it's way harder to start it in the thick of the crazy. So start it when life isn't so crazy. I don't even know if that exists anymore. If you are already in a crisis, don't be afraid to call out to God, but don't feel like you need to wait to be in a crisis mode to do that. Your life does not need to be on fire for you to call out for His help. Make time with Him a priority in normal life. That is how you get to know Him and to recognize when He's speaking to you. It's like if you talk to a friend all the time. You get to recognize their voice so much so that you could probably close your eyes and tell if it was them or not. It's the same thing. The more quality time you spend with God, the more you'll be able to tell if it's Him or not. I had a friend that was with me shortly after we decided to not move forward with the house, and she was honestly really confused about us walking away, especially because everything had gone so smooth up until that point. And it really made me question, and even reliving the story, I almost started to question, wow, did we blow past God early on? Did we not get a green light? Did we just do something that we wanted without consulting with Him? And I really don't feel like that's the case, but it really has caused me to ask the question, how do we handle big life decisions? Sometimes I feel like God gives us a distinct direction, a distinct call or piece about something. And then sometimes I feel like as long as we are seeking Him and glorifying Him with what we are doing in our lives, He's going to bless what we choose. And I feel like when I was a new Christian, when I first gave my heart to the Lord, I became almost obsessed with walking the straight and narrow road and obsessed with being in His perfect will to the point that it was unhealthy. I carried so much anxiety about making sure I didn't step outside of His will. And the longer that I've been on this Christian journey, the more I realize that God allows us to make choices to do different things in life as long as we are glorifying Him. So when we come to crossroads, sometimes we put pressure on ourselves to do the one thing that God wants us to do. And I think that Eric and I have come to the conclusion that sometimes God is sitting up there going, no, I am proud of you. You guys honor me. And so wherever you go, I'm going to bless you. I will be with you. I will walk with you. And so when I was reliving the story, I kept asking myself, what happened early on? And I think the reality is that we made a call because we didn't see any red flags. We thought it all looked good. We thought it all sounded good. And I'm so glad that God stepped in when He did. I wish that maybe he would have made it clear sooner, but, I wouldn't have this memorable story. So, he uses all things. And so, I don't know, maybe you also thought that as you were listening to my story, how did it get so far? Why didn't you know? And maybe the truth is that it just happened so that I'd be able to share it with you. I don't know. The Lord uses everything. And I hope that this story encourages someone somewhere in life that may be in a situation that's similar. I don't know, but I felt like I was supposed to share this story. And honestly, it has blessed me so much in my own life to go back a couple of years and to relive this story and remember how God moved, because we're walking through a situation right now where we're in the middle of a testimony. And wow, it feels good to relive this and see now being on the other side of that testimony. It just encourages my heart. And that's what this podcast is all about. God making rivers in the wasteland when we're not sure what's going to happen, when we're not sure if he's going to pull through or how things are going to work out. We know we can be confident that God told us in the Word that he will make a pathway through the desert and he will make that river in the wasteland. And for that, I'm so, so thankful. There are many things that I would have loved to do with that $11,000, believe me. But I'm thankful that we went through that experience so that I could remember the moment that God assured me that I do know his voice, that I am his, and I'll carry that gift with me for the rest of my life. Thank you for joining me today. If this episode resonated with you, or if this podcast has been a blessing in your life, please leave a review on your favorite platform. And don't forget to subscribe so you'll be notified of all upcoming episodes. Remember that God is at work today in mighty ways, ready to make rivers in the wasteland. If he can do it for me, I know he can do it for you.